Houston Harris was an American professional wrestler, better known by his ring name Bobo Brazil, credited with breaking down barriers of racial segregation in professional wrestling. Harris is considered one of the first successful African American professional wrestlers. Welcome to Wrestling News Now. I'm Todd Tanner. Just before I get into the story about Bobo Brazil on tonight, if you're passing by and you like this particular story, do me a favor, hit the like button and also subscribe to Wrestling News Now with Todd Tanner. So this is another great profile story here, and it's good to find out who the trailblazers and pioneers were when it comes to men of color within the world of professional wrestling. Now let's get right down to the heart of this story here. I think you're going to like it. Houston Harris was born on the 10th of July of 1924 and passed away on the 20th of January of 1988. Was an American professional wrestler better known by his ring name Bobo Brazil, credited with breaking down barriers of racial segregation in professional wrestling. Harris is considered one of the first successful African American professional wrestlers. Houston Harris was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, but later lived in East Louis, Illinois, and Benton Harbor, Michigan. His father died when he was 7 years old, which resulted in him doing odd jobs, such as working on a local fruit farm for 50 cents a container. He played baseball in the Negro Leagues for the House of David, where he was discovered to become a wrestler at a steel mill. Harris was trained by Joe Savoldi after meeting him at matches at the Naval Armory. Savoldi originally named Harris Bobo Brazil, the South American giant, where he wrestled using a sequin satin cape stitched together by his wife, but a promoter misprinted his first name as Bobo in an advertisement, and the name stuck with Harris throughout the entirety of his career. During the time, segregation in the South normally limited African American wrestlers to only wrestle other African American wrestlers. Harris proved so popular that promoters put aside the prejudices in order to make money. Brazil's first recorded match was on March 29, 1948. In Benton Harbor, wrestling as Houston Harris, the Black Panther, against Ahmed Myers to a 30-minute draw. Harris was taught by Joe Savoldi to be an honest athlete in the ring and never to take shortcuts on anybody to win a match. He was instilled to be a crowd friend right to the end. Finding success in Detroit, which was an urban center, Brazil developed a fan base among both the black and white populace with his modesty, stylish dress, and professionalism, making him a big draw and an appealing babyface to both races of fans. Although loved by fans, it didn't stop Brazil from dealing with bigotry and discrimination during that time, in an era when Harris ascended to stardom. African American fans were forced to sit in arenas that made it hard to see Bobo's matches. Even Harris himself was banned from going to restaurants, hotels, and even wrestling in certain territories due to the color of his skin. In the early 50s, he also performed in Japan. Brazil would have had many matches with competitors such as Killer Kowalski, Dick the Bruiser, Johnny Valentine, Haystacks Calhoun, and the Sheik, who feuded with Brazil over the course of several decades, with a variety of their matches being acclaimed bloody matchups. These and other rivals would all fall victim to Brazil's finishing maneuver, the Coco Butt, but the move also breaking racial barriers. Brazil also once wrestled Bill Miller to a draw and challenged Bruno Sammartino for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship in a battle of two top babyface competitors. On October 18, 1962, Brazil defeated Nature Boy Buddy Rogers by hitting him in the groin, causing Rogers to be unable to continue. Brazil refused the championship and they met a couple of weeks later and Rogers won. At the time, the promoters were working a gimmick where the champion would be hit in the groin and the challenger wouldn't accept the title. The same scenario occurred in Toronto 2 weeks earlier with Bruno Sammartino and Rogers. Neither Brazil nor Sammartino were officially recognized by the NWA as having won the World Heavyweight Type Championship. The distinction is usually given to Ron Simmons, the first recognized African American world champion after winning the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. On October 9, 1970, Brazil and El Mongo defeated Mr. Ito and the Great Otto in the first racially mixed match in Atlanta history. Brazil served as a mentor to wrestler Solomon Rocky Johnson and boxer Joe Frazier. I'll be talking about both of them at some point in time. No, Joe Frazier is not a wrestler, but he did have an impact in the world of professional wrestling. Brazil's manager was James Dudley, the first African American to be in charge of a major arena in the United States. Dudley would run to the ring waving a towel as Brazil followed behind. Brazil retired in 1993 after a 4-decade career. His last official match was in Chicago, Illinois, against Kelly Kinski, son of rival Gene Kinski. Brazil was inducted into the WWF Hall of Fame class of 1994 by longtime rival Ernie Ladd. The following year, Brazil inducted Ladd into the WWF Hall of Fame. Harris had a wife and 6 children. After retiring from wrestling, he ran a restaurant called Bobo's Grill, which lasted for more than 20 years. His son Carl wrestles as Bobo Brazil Jr. in the independent circuit. His brother wrestled as Hank James. Harris died on January 20th, 1998, at the Lakeland Medical Center in St. Joseph, Michigan. He had been admitted to the hospital on January 14th and was confined to a wheelchair after suffering a series of strokes. Now let's talk about Bobo Brazil's championships and accomplishments. According to Big Time Wrestling in Detroit, he won the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship on occasion of 9 times, the NWA World Tag Team Championship in Detroit version 8 times, with Art Thomas 1, Bill Miller 1, Athol Layton 1, The Stomper 1 time, Tony Marino 1 time, and Fred Curry 1 time. He also won the Big Time Wrestling in San Francisco, the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship, according to the San Francisco version, 1 time at that time. And then around the Championship Wrestling Florida area, he was, along with his partner Sweet Brown Sugar, they won the NWA Florida Tag Team Championships twice, and Dusty Rhodes 1 time. The Great American Dream. You know I'm going to talk about Dusty at some point in time. And in the Japan Wrestling Association, he won the NWA International Heavyweight Championship 1 time. First reign is officially recognized. In the Maple Leaf Wrestling area, he won the NWA Canadian Open Tag Team Championship 1 time with Whipper Bill Watson, and the NWA United States Championship, the Toronto version, 1 time. The Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling area, he won the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship 1 time. And then now we go down to the Midwest Wrestling Association in Ohio. He won the MWA Ohio Heavyweight Championship 1 time. He won the MMA Ohio Tag Team Championship 3 times with Frankie Tabera. In the NWA, or the National Wrestling Alliance, he was inducted into the NWA Hall of Fame, the class of 2013. Now let's check out the NWA Hollywood Wrestling Worldwide Wrestling Associates. He won the NWA America's Heavyweight Championship on 3 occasions, the NWA Beat the Champ Television Championship 1 time, the NWA International Television Tag Team Championship 4 times with Wilbur Snyder, Sandor Zabo, and Primo Canera 1 time. He won the NWA Pacific Coast Heavyweight Championship 1 time. And on 1 occasion, he was the WWA World Heavyweight Championship 2 times. He was inducted into the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum in the class of 2008, the television era class. According to Pro Wrestling Illustrated, he won the PWI Editor Award in 1998 and the Superstars of Wrestling. He was the SOW United States Heavyweight Champion one time. According to the within the World Wrestling Association in Indianapolis, he was a WWA World Heavyweight Champion. He won that championship twice. The WWA World Tag Team Championship one time with Chris Carter, and also the Worldwide Wrestling Federation and the World Wrestling Federation. He won the WWF United States Heavyweight Championship 7 times. He was inducted into the WWF Hall of Fame class of 1994 and the Wrestling Observer newsletter, the Wrestling Observer newsletter, the Hall of Fame. This is amazing. And there were other championships, such as the World Negro Heavyweight Championship. He won those titles twice. So there you have it. Bobo Brazil, the one and the only, broke down barriers in the racially charged, segregated arenas of professional wrestling and even in the professional wrestling venues itself. So Bobo Brazil, will never forget you. Thanks for trailblazing. Rest in peace, our brother. For Wrestling News Now, I'm Todd Tanner.